I love talking to groups. One of the things Earl didn't mention, this is the truth, in one of my prior lives, I was a stand-up comic in Las Vegas. That was fun. When I became an activist and was asked to give talks to groups, I decided to take a course myself in giving speeches. And the very first day, the instructor said, you never start a speech with a joke. That was the last class that I took in official speech writing. So, with that advice, I heard a story some years ago on the Prairie Home Companion. I'm sure about 50% of you probably heard it, so I'll repeat it for the other 50%. Just bear with me. There was Pat walking across a bridge, and he saw another man standing on the edge of the bridge ready to jump off. And Pat yelled, "Stop, stop, don't do it. There's so much to live for." And the other man said, "Yeah, like what?" Pat said, "Well, are you religious or atheist?" The man said, "I'm religious." Pat said, "Me too. Are you Catholic or Protestant?" The man said, "I'm Protestant." Pat was all excited. "Me too." He then said, "Are you Episcopalian or Baptist?" The man said, "Baptist." Pat said, "Me too." Then Pat said, "Are you the original Baptist Church of God or the Reformed Baptist Church of God?" And the man said, "The Reformed Baptist Church of God." And Pat was all excited. "Me too." Then he said, "Are you the Reformed Baptist Church of God, the Reformation of 1879, or the Reformation of 1915? The man said, "The Reformation of 1915. And Pat pushed him over the bridge and said, "Die, you heretic scum." And the reason I like to tell this story is, in the United States, there are probably as many varieties of free thought as there are varieties of Christianity. And like Christians, free thinkers have a tendency to think that the term they use to describe their beliefs are the best. And many free thinkers or non-theists think the terms we use are the best. And my concern is that we spend so much time arguing among ourselves as to what we call ourselves that we don't have time to recognize who the real people we should be defending ourselves against. We have a very serious civil liberties problem, and we don't spend sufficient time addressing that problem. The time is spent instead, am I an atheist or an agnostic or a humanist or whatever. Various Christian denominations in the past had a comparatively minimal voice in the running of our country until they started to speak with one voice as the Christian Coalition. It didn't start off too powerful. And those of you who are close to my age, I don't expect any of you to be as old as me, but remember when the Christian Coalition started. And it was a pretty non-significant organization. And we see today how powerful that group has become. And none of the members of that coalition have lost their autonomy. They still remain separate organizations, but they have a powerful voice. They can choose a president. They can determine the issues that are discussed. They can have a presidential forum disgracefully being held in a megachurch. And the questions that are of importance to people today are, how much of a Christian are you? It's scary and it's frightening, and I'm concerned for the well-being of my grandchildren and their children, because I don't want them to grow up in a society where they can't say, "I'm an atheist," and get the respect that a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or a Buddhist should get. A good example of groups working together. Years ago, something interesting happened to me several weeks ago. We were discussing Well, it all started discussing this proposition that's now, I think it's question 2, that has to do with same-sex marriage. Is that the one? Okay, I'm just a new resident of Florida. I've been living here 3 months. But the issue came out about gays and lesbians and the problem in this country. And a comment was made, I remember 30 years ago, there were no gays in this country. And look how many there are today. And that's because our morals are going down. Now, we all know, and it's very obvious, that there's more gays in this country because people are willing to acknowledge what they always were. There are 30 million non-theists in the United States. According to almost every poll that's taken, it's between 10 and 15%, and I'm using a conservative 10% figure. 10% of the 300 million population is 30 million people. Why are we not more powerful? 30 million, what a block. That's more than the Jews and the Muslims and the Hindus and the Buddhists combined in this country. 30 million. Yet nobody hears us. And why don't they hear us? Because we don't associate with each other, because I'm an atheist and he's an agnostic and he's a free thinker. So what's the difference with all of these terms? With the gay and lesbian movement, only when they came together as the GLBT movement did they start to be heard. And we need to do the same thing. Happily, in the past few years, most non-theists have come to realize that we all have common concerns. And we have to speak with one voice if we want to be a significant force or voice. All we're asking for is a seat at the table. We're not looking to take over anybody. We're not looking to belittle religion, but we want a voice. There are enough of us that we should be heard. Let me talk a little bit about the various terms we use to identify ourselves. I will leave plenty of time for questions and answers. If I had my choice, if I was invited to give a talk, I would just stand up here and say, okay, ask questions. But I have to have a topic, so we'll talk about the varieties of free thought, and I will give plenty of time for you to ask me anything you'd like about the American Humanist Association, what we do, what we can all do, about the Secular Coalition for America, which is probably the most important organization in our country today. How many of you have heard of it? I'm sure very few. Yes, we all should. Okay, let me start first with the word atheist, that terrible word atheist. Richard Dawkins Foundation is distributing the Scarlet A. He has people wearing that letter A on their lapels for the dreaded word atheist. Why is it a dreaded word? Because the religious right has demonized it. The argument among non-theists, and I'll use the word non-theist because that's about the only inclusive term I could think of right now. But the argument among non-theists is, let's not use that word atheist. People like Sam Harris, best-selling author, has said in the speech last year, we should avoid using that term because of the negative connotation. Well, the question is, do we stop using a term because other people try to demonize the term? Or do we use it more so that it becomes undemonized? How many of your neighbors, acquaintances, employers know that you're an atheist if you are? They probably don't. How many can say some of my best friends are atheists? Probably very few, because they don't know that their best friends are atheists.